Hello everyone. Sorry, my broadcast software is acting janky. Uh-oh. Hello everyone. Welcome to another live stream as we work on getting Paperize.io launched. First, I wanted to show you that I made some stuff with my kid. Made these little cards. He did some pixel art drawings. Oh no, my thing is too lagged. Can't see. Oh yeah, there we go. Oh yeah, back is good. So, you know, he made some pixel art and I threw it into a game real quick. I threw it into some cards real quick so that we could pull it out and play with it on the tabletop. And kind of paper prototype game. It's a video game we want to work on, but we're paper prototyping it beforehand because paper prototyping is awesome. So yeah, I just made a big pile of these in no time. Threw them on the tabletop. Slid them around, talked about interactions, illuminated a lot of requirements that weren't obvious to me just by talking to him. It was awesome. So yeah, you know, Paperize is still working for simple cases. What's my to-do list today? My first item, show off cards made with Paperize. I always like to make my first to-do list item something I can check off immediately. So, you know, get some momentum going. But what we're doing today is not just looking at pretty pictures, but working with the Google Drive API. Let's see, I'm going to show off the architecture I'm using. Separation of Vuex and GAPI. That'll just be me talking through some code for a minute. And then I'm going to dig in and implement database, JSON database, initialization. I'm going to implement JSON database loading. And then I'm going to implement JSON database syncing. So initialization is when there's none there when you first log in and you've got to start a database. And it looks like my to-do list is going off of my screen. My little widget, that's fine. Let me just mark off my first item. Yay. All right, I'm deleting it so I've got more room. Yeah, so I'll show off the architecture, then we'll initialize the database, means there's none there, and you first logged in, so we got to create one, like an empty one. Loading means you've logged in and it did find one in your Google Drive, and it needs to be downloaded into the current client you're using. And syncing means that you're getting some work done. So obviously as you work, your local database is changing, and that needs to be saved to Drive. Once all that works, Paperize is going to be awesome. It's going to be a completely serverless app that you can still use on different browsers. All your data goes into Drive, and you own it. I don't ever see it. No corporate entity outside of Google, which, you know, don't be evil, Google. Take it or leave it, but hey, they have much better security than I will ever build. So we're going to let them do it. For now. Bring your own backend would be nice at some point, but for now, Google's the obvious, easy choice. Yeah, so I'm just going to work on that right now. I'm going to go ahead and add another item after it, even though you can't see it. That's about images. Spec out the image tasks, but I'm betting I won't even get to that. The other thing after the database is these images. You should be able, Paperize should let you just be able to easily specify a Google Drive folder full of images. And just grab them. So that way you don't have to deal with images inside Paperize. You can use Google Drive's much better tools, maintain your own image library in a Drive folder, and import it directly. Yeah, so I think that's it. Let me switch views. All right. And now that we're about to dig into the work, let's see, is everything looking good? Everything's almost looking good. Let me just tweak this real quick. Make my goals a little more visible. There we go. Great. Okay. I'm going to tweet real quick that I'm live coding so that anyone can join us if they wish. Certainly chat at me if you've got any questions about what I'm doing. I will try to deal with any chat messages as they come through. Alright, the tweet is out. And we're off. Okay, so what are we talking about? We're talking about logging in with Google. We're talking about clicking sign in, seeing this lovely Google pop-up. I thought pop-ups were dead, but hey, Google uses them. Fine. Sign in. And now I signed in, but it also is looking for the database. So as soon as you sign in, give Google permission, Paperize has to reach out into Drive and look for a database. And I'm actually logging out a little bit of stuff here. It did find a file called Paperize database.json, and that's the database file that I'm talking about. Let's go look at the code architecture for this. It's not doing anything with it yet. I've just got some basic calls in there. It's kind of a big mess. Oh look, I was in the middle of something when I stopped. Or no, it's not export default. It's just export. Yeah. Okay. So user is the name of a view. Sorry, a Vuex module. I'm pronouncing Vuex as Vuex. I don't know if that's right or not, but it's different from view. So view and Vuex makes it easy for me to talk about, at least. Okay, so we're looking at the users module in Vuex. It's got state, getters, mutations, and actions. So what I'm thinking about actions is that, okay, so obviously the user module is something that manages logging in, logging out, but it doesn't actually, Google's the thing that actually manages logging in, logging out. So Vuex really just needs to defer to Google for all that and then receive stuff back from Google. And I think I have too many layers here, but I'm going to go ahead and explain them all anyway. So this is the user module, and it's dispatching actions to something called Google Login Flow, Google Database Lookup, and Google Database Initialize. Those actions are all listed inside of a Google module, which is another Vuex module that just gets added. And what I want to do, I want to have this kind of happen. So the actions really shouldn't do much. They shouldn't. I don't want my Vuex actions to know the internals of the Google API. I want another layer to do that. I read a good comment on Reddit the other day about how someone doesn't even use Vuex actions anymore because if you do, you tend to put more and more stuff into them, and it's really not the place for it. So, and I found that to be true as well. I was bringing in the Google API into this Vuex module, and all of my Google API calls were kind of being twisted and contorted into Vuex actions, which wasn't the best. So what I'd like to do instead is some stuff like this, like so what should Vuex know about? Vuex should know about state management, right? And not like API calls and things. So let's see. So I've actually got a service called Google, and that is a whole separate thing. And it's over here. It's a directory. It's got an auth, drive, and sheets modules. I'm using the word module loosely there. But the idea is that these files are pure services, so they don't know about Vuex. They only, I said they don't know about Vuex, but they might. They're going to handle all the calls to Google, and they're going to transform whatever Google says into something Vuex can understand. So they're the go-between. So Vuex doesn't need to know about the API. It can just call these nice things in this service. And the service wraps the API and does all the contortions necessary to get the data nice. So I basically have a layer between Vuex and the Google API, which is entirely reasonable, I think. Here we go. Here's a good example. So fetch sheets. So we're literally like getting a listing of all of your sheets out of Google Drive. Well, I've got the sheets module and I'm calling fetch sheets on it. So what this action is doing is it's not just calling the fetch sheets. It's committing to turn off the spinner, which is a spinner like a loading spinner. Like, hey, Google is waiting on Google, you know. So you turn that spinner on before you make the call. And then I'm using .finally here. Bluebird is so lovely for promises. Finally, this will happen, but it won't change what the promise chain that it's attached to yields. So I know that once this yields, I will turn off the spinner. It gets set to true here and false here. But the return value of sheets will actually get resolved to whoever dispatched the fetch sheets action. So does that make sense? I've got Vuex, the Google module in Vuex wraps the Google service. And so while the Google service doesn't know anything about other Vuex actions, it just knows about what it returns. The Google module in Vuex, oh my god, terminology. The Google module in Vuex handles the rest of Vuex. It makes the Google service copacetic with the app, the state of the app. So yeah, so it's things such as show spinner. I mean, this is exactly showing the spinner is not something that the API service should do. And you can see kind of the same things happening here, fetching sheets by API. And I'll probably factor this at some point, like showing the spinner is an obvious. I mean, this pattern is going to happen a lot, right? Show the spinner, hide the spinner when done. Yeah. Anyway. So what am I doing? So I'm including that service as Google, and I'm pulling out the individual modules as I need them. Auth sheets and then Drive. Drive will be the last one, and I'm not using it yet, but I will be soon. Actually, I will be here. So here's an example of what I don't want. Google database lookup. So here's an action. And oh my god, check that out. It's not even done yet. And what this does, it gets the client, the API client. It makes a Drive API call. It knows the details of the API to make the function call itself. It knows the details of the API to structure a query for what I want. You know, that's a magic string right in the middle of a bunch of nested promises. It knows how to parse the response. It knows how to make further calls after the response is made. So we've got like a promise chain here. Here I'm actually building a query. A little more cleaner than I did up here with the magic string. Holy cow, the amount of stuff in here is crazy. And then it makes another call. And I was just kind of parsing the response from that when I quit. When I last quit. There's no video of that. That was just me kind of trying to get ahead. And then I've got this other one, the Google database initialize call. So let's look back at user real quick because it kind of looks correct. So this action's getting a little bit big. I don't love it, but it's clean in terms of what's in here. So kind of a similar thing. Set the login error to null, so there's no login error. Just we like clear the login error if we're just starting the login process again. And then we dispatch the Google login flow action, which we expect to yield us some not a Google user whereas I used to have the API thing where it returns some object you've got to call, like get profile and get name and all this stuff. All that's been yanked out from this Google login flow, which I think is in auth. Here it is. Here's sign in, which gets called. Sign in gets called is the service thing. It gets called from the Google module. So the Google login flow is an action, and it just returns auth.signin. And the sign in knows how to unwrap the stuff from the API library to get the auth2 object. The auth2 object has this method called sign in that prompts the user to do all the pop-up stuff that I showed you. And if that is successful, it will hand me this thing called a Google user, on which I can call get basic profile, and that profile can have things called on it: get name, get email, get image URL, as well as a bunch of other stuff that I don't actually care about. I really just needed those 3 pieces of information: name, email, image URL. And so I'm having a promise resolve those. Another thing is that Google API doesn't do promises correctly. Like, look at this. It's using .then on this call, but expects you to pass your success callback and then your error callback. You know, that's not modern JavaScript, people. I don't think. I mean, what do I know? I'm a charlatan half the time. But that's not the Bluebird style promises that I'm used to. And again, Bluebird is amazing. Okay, so what's the point of that? The point is I want to use standard promises in most of my app. And so since having weird promise stuff in the API, being forced on me from the API, that's another thing I want to wrap inside this service, make it better. So I make a new promise here, and I choose how it resolves and rejects, which is pretty easy. You resolve in the success one, and you reject in the fail one, and that's fine. I also unroll their error into a proper JavaScript error, since I don't think they do that. This is a great example of the service working to bridge the gap between how you make the calls to Google and how the data gets returned. I don't want to use the word return. How the data is structured, so I transform it, and how it gets resolved, how the promise interface. So all that happens in here. Yeah, great. That's working. That's a refactor I already did that I'm proud of and works pretty well. So you can see the actions that are exposed are very simple. They just call the service layer, which is great. Oh, give me 1 sec. I need to do something. I actually can't see my own chat window, so I need to pop it out. Done. Got to make sure I see it if someone asks me a question, right? Right. Okay. I've got this called login flow. I should probably call it login. Flow kind of tells you that it does this whole rigmarole, but how many times did I use it? I define it and I use it once, except in test where I use it a lot. That's fine. It's fine because I'm going to replace it right now. And that's done. There we go. Now it looks better. Google login and Google logout. Great. Fetch sheets. Maybe that should be Google Fetch Sheets. It should, like, that's my question. Do I not namespace, but do I prefix all these with Google just so you know which service you're calling? Clearly started doing that. Okay. I'm going to leave Fetch Sheets and Fetch Sheet by ID alone for the moment. Where do those get called, though? Let's go look at their call side. So user is the one that makes calls to the login and the database stuff. Who makes calls to sheets? Right, sources does. And how does that look? So fetch remote sources, it calls fetch sheets, and then it commits what comes back. Which is right. I think. You know, it's not ugly. It's not like no contortions are happening here. I think I may rename it to Google Fetch Sheets. But yeah, then all it does is do something with the Vuxy with the response, which is to slam all the stuff that responded into Vux, which is great. Okay, fetch sheet by ID also only happens in sources. Yes, yes. And that's very Vuxy as well, right? So we call fetch sheet by ID and hand it the remote ID that we're wishing to fetch. The fetched source gets yielded to us. And then we take that source and we check to see if we have it. If we do, then we update it, and if we don't, then we create it. And this is all clean Vuxy stuff. And then we update the component that references that we're working with to point to the right source ID. So this is clean, right? Like it's none the wiser that there's like a Google remote API being called. It's all just action-y stuff. That said, I am totally going to rename. Actually, I'm not going to rename all of them, so let's just rename these. Start here. And then that'll have errors everywhere else if we don't fix it where it's actually called. Google Fetch Sheets and Google Fetch Sheet by ID. Okay. I believe that's going to do it, except maybe in a test, which is fine. Let me check on my tunes. It sounds like my music just stopped playing. Yes, it did. I don't know why it did. Another shout out to Chill Hop. They've got royalty-free music just for streaming. All you gotta do is let them know that you're using them and give them credit. So here I am giving them credit while I use them. Okay. Okay, let's get some work done. So, right, so this is terrible. So we've agreed this is terrible. Database lookup. So I don't really know exactly what I want this to be. Let's go back to where it's called. Database lookup. So I want to call database lookup, and I want to receive a database back that I can just cram straight into the state. So there you go. So I need to... So the service layer needs to do all the work to find it. And then hand it back. Now, it looks like I'm saying if found database, so resolving, false or something? Or null. If it doesn't get found, tells it to go and initialize it instead. I'm not exactly sure if these are copacetic. If-else statements, like they seem to maybe be leaking in their responsibilities. But I'm gonna chill for now on it. Right. So this really just needs to it needs to return a database ready to load or null. All right, and I'm going to take this whole thing, this whole body, and we're going to move it into Drive. Return Drive dot database lookup. And I don't know if that's actually the thing I'm going to call. I don't think that's the thing I'm going to call, but it's the thing I'm going to call for the moment. We're going to go into Drive, and we're going to add database lookup. What am I doing wrong? Just save it and see. There we go. Unexpected token. What am I doing wrong here? Unexpected token. Am I forgetting JavaScript? That happens. That definitely happens. Oh, I've got this export default. I've got to learn what that means. To be honest. Fetch sheets. That's a function definition. Why is it not working in here? Oh. Oh, because, so I do have to say export default. Right? Yeah. Sometimes when I do that, it gets weird on me. Okay. Great. Already getting some linter problems, which is good because I have linter problems. Right, so auth is the other module which handles login, logout, and getting the API client. So Drive is including get client from its neighbor auth, and which it was already doing, but it was including auth and calling get client. So now it can just say get client. Great. And then down here, what's this? Oh, map. Map is not being included, so let's bring that in. Import map from Lodash. Everybody's favorite JavaScript utility. Okay. Great. Okay, so this method is completely offensive to my sensibilities, because it goes from line 7 to line 43, so we've got like a 36-line function, which is terrible. I like 5-line functions if possible. Excuse me. Okay, right, so it already does kind of too much stuff. That's one thing. I don't know if I want to break this up. I mean, this call here, this is this can be pulled out and it can just yield this. So get folder IDs, get Paperize folders. Let's do it. Let's just do it. Get Paperize folders. Folder IDs. Okay, so That's easy enough. We just yank that out, drop it up here. That can be a const, okay. Still doesn't like this. Parsing error, unexpected. Fine. How's that? Okay. So we got to wrap it in a promise because you got to wrap it in a promise. Ah. Need that there, need that there, need that there. Oh, that's a lovely JavaScript cascade of closing brackets. Haven't seen one of those in a while. Great. Okay. Right, so folder IDs. I think this will just work. I'm going to resolve it. Right, so I can probably just resolve folder IDs. So I'm resolving just the array of IDs. And now this, that doesn't need to be there. I can just call get folder IDs dot then folder IDs. Great. Now all that's just factored. Beautiful. And the rest of the stuff can, oh yeah, so here's the error. And reject. Right, and that was being called after this. I'm pulling it out and putting it back on there. Right, and this was this is Google janking up the promises. Let me see if I can make this read a little cleaner. Success. Callback. Failure callback. Right, I need to indent all of this. I don't know if it reads better or not, but yeah, you know, makes this whole thing easier to deal with. So we've got so we're using the Bluebird library for promises in here. Very first thing we do is just return a promise, and it's a Bluebird promise. Inside the promise, we call the make the API call, and when it responds, we wrap. Waiting on my video to come back. There we go. When it calls, we wrap the success response and the failure responses, and they both end with a resolve. It's much cleaner as far as I'm concerned, so I think we're going to keep that. Okay, now we need another one. So this whole chunk is so the thing is, so the whole goal, let's just say, find a file named Paperize database.json in a folder named paperize.io. And Google Drive makes it a little weird. So the first thing you have to do is search for folders, name that. And that'll give you back more than one. That'll return 0 or more folders. So I suppose you could have two folders that are both named the same thing. Right. And then I've got to look in each of those folders for the file. So that's why there's a promise.each here, because I'm going to get folder IDs back. The result is more than one file. So basically I'm mapping them to just their IDs. So I just have an array of folder IDs. These are folder IDs that are of folders named paperize.io. So then I need to search inside each of those for a file named Paperize database.json with a MIME type of application/JSON. So this method should look like that, right? So get Paperize folder IDs, I get those. And then I think I'll let the promise each stay here. Let's see what belongs here and what doesn't. So basically I'm going to look in each one, and I'm just going to use the first one I find and not finish the promise chain, the collection. It'll finish them, but they'll each, once it's found, they'll just early bail. Okay, so folder ID is kind of the key here. So this is what I want to yank out, I think. This is the actual API call, and this is the prep work for it. So that makes a good function. And it can probably parse its own file out. Yeah, we'll do that. Okay, so what should that function be called? So we've got get Paperize folder IDs. Let's say get Paperize database ID. Probably is going to be an ID. I doubt they return me the content of the file. Just going to look at. I've got a API response here already, so I may as well look at it. Come on. Right, the API response gives you the ID, and then I think you have to make a call to get the whole file. Oh yeah, download files. Files.get. Oh boy. Let's look at files.get. Yep, just needs the ID, and then it hands you a file resource. Which is just metadata. Holy cow, this is a big response. My goodness. Right, so what's the damn... What is the... Wait, am I looking at get? Oh... Right, it responds... Oh, I'm looking at it. It responds with this thing. Is there any... Oh, web content link. A link for downloading the content of the file in a browser. Oh, only available for files with binary content. Okay. JSON would not be binary content, and I would like... Viewers can copy content, original file name, full file extension, MD5 checks on... That's nice. That's really nice, because it's the whole thing Paperize is entirely predicated on. Checking the hashes of things and making sure that they've actually changed and doing content addressing and such. Alright, what else we got? Size, head revision ID, that's cool. Content hints, thumbnail image, MIME type, indexable content, indexable text. I don't care. What other content do we have? Can copy content, export. Oh, it's a Google Doc. Well, I don't see where I get it. Text. How about text? Is text a thing? Email address. Display name. How about data? Image, media metadata, great. Don't need any of that. Video metadata, no. Well, pretty funny. I'm having a hard time finding how you actually get a file. Get the contents of the file. Like, what's the point of all this metadata if I can't get the thing? We'll find it. We'll figure it out. But suffice to say, the ID is the key. So get Paperize database ID. I don't know if I like that name. How about search folder for database? Folder ID. All right, so for each of the folder IDs, I'm going to search the folder for the database. And I'll store it if I found it. So then database ID. I don't know, DB ID. I don't like to abbreviate things. It's just no need, you know. Code should be readable, legible. Let me change that to found database ID. I like that. Let's go implement that, which means copy it. With a const. Doesn't like that. Folder ID in there. Okay, and then we can yank this, the rest of this. Drop it in there. Great. And this is the beginning of me factoring the API search code, which I may or may not end up actually doing, depending on how much we end up using it elsewhere. Like if the images portion starts using a lot of this kind of thing, maybe I'll extract it. But we'll see. For now, it's just building a magic string a little easier, a little nicer. Okay, I'm going to need to wrap in a promise again, because we want our Bluebird promises. All right, so instead of returning that, we're going to return a new promise. Resolve and reject. Okay, what so I'm going to search the folder I was given for a file named Paperize. I'm actually going to change the order of this, just because I feel like the file name should come before the MIME type. All right, so in the given folder, is there a file named Paperize database.json? That's a magic name. Oops. That's a magic name, and I'm going to change it into a magic name with a const up here at the top. Paperize database file name equals that. So that's the magic file name that we will always look for. For now, always for now. And then we're going to need to interpolate that in here. Paperize database file name. I need to change this to interpolation quotes. There we go. Great. I don't always like to do this, but sometimes when you're dealing with data like this, it just cleans it up. Cleans up the fact that I'm basically building a query. Yeah, I'll leave it like that. I don't want to be too clever. Cleverness is sometimes useful, but most times not. Okay. Okay, we build the clause, and then we wrap the API call in a normal Bluebird promise. The query itself is very simple. It just combines all the elements from above. I'm going to break this then down so I can see better. This is the success callback. And if that's the success callback, then this is the error callback. See, I didn't even have this error callback in there before, which is just like... and that's because it's hard to read when you've got a massive wall of promises the way I did. So breaking it out like this is already having value by making things more legible. DB file response. I call that .result multiple times. Let's just destructure it because boom, it's much more pretty this way. Maybe I'll get burned by this, but I'm pretty sure this success callback will always get called with something that has a result, and that result will have files, even if it's a 0 length array. So that's where I check this. We'll find out. We'll find out. That may bite me. I probably don't even need to do this check, because found_db is found_db. Oh, I'm not doing found_db anymore. That's outside. Right. All I need to do is resolve. Let's see here. I actually left the note down here. No, I didn't. Search folder for database. I expected it to. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to yield this thing. I'm just going to yield this thing. So really instead of setting found_db, somebody else handles that now. I'm just going to resolve the first file in the array, which should be null, undefined, I should say, in the case that nothing was found. Wait. Oh, wait. No. I've got to check it because I need to yank the ID out of it. What I really need is the ID, right? And I'm calling file.id. So let's go back. Right, so we're going to check to see if it's got a length greater than 0. Why don't we, instead of that, just check to see if there's something at the first one. If there is, we're going to resolve it.id. And if there's not, we're going to resolve null. Or we're just going to resolve. It'll be undefined. It's fine. And this resolve and reject, if it's not clear, is coming from the Bluebird promise, which is outside of the janky Google promises. So I start a Google promise, a Bluebird promise outside. It wraps the Google promise, which does use .then, but not the same way we do. It uses this success error style, and so then I just inject the resolve reject inside of that of Google's promises, essentially fixing their promise API, so that anyone who calls these things can use normal promises. Okay, and I believe that's going to do it. I am currently feeling a little weird that I'm not writing tests, so I'm going to add better comments. Build the search query. Resolves the found database ID or undefined. Great. and this one resolves an array of IDs. Okay, I'm gonna code fold, get Paperize folder IDs, search folder for database. Those are clearly two functions that can be called with each other. Indeed they are. I'm down here rejecting stuff that I'm not even using. Yeah, okay. Okay, let me move my comments up here because I'm liking them. Query for possible DB files. Filter results to the folder name match. That's not really right, but... Search each folder for the file name. Yeah, so by the time this promise is done, which is to say we can call a dot then. This database ID will be the thing. Found database ID. And if I return it inside of a promise, inside of a then that will become the thing that gets resolved. So this promise.each is going to run through every folder ID. And if it finds the first one that it finds, the first file it finds is the one that will get its ID resolved to the calling action. This whole download the file and parse the file into JSON is separate stuff, which I'll probably fix. Whoa, what happened here? Why is my code full? Oh, client's not defined. Client is not defined? How did the other one use it? Oh, he called get client. Oh, yeah, this was all inside. It's fine. Why is my linter fighting me? Oh my god. Four and eight, okay. This is the promise, this is the get client. Yeesh. Sorry folks, just fighting my linter a little bit. No bigs. Okay. So when you call database lookup, it gets folder IDs, and then it searches each folder for a database, and if it finds one, it resolves it. I don't have a catch. I don't have a promise catch on here. Let's go back out, see how this is called. Try. Oh, here we go. Drive is undefined. Beautiful. Let's import drive. Oh, map is not being used. Promise is not being used. Amazing. Right, because all that gnarly promise juju fell into the service library. So this thing got to slim up a little bit. Great. So at current, this is going to resolve with an ID. User is calling it here. Found, okay, if found database. I'm going to take a quick break. Be right back. And we're back. Sorry, folks, I ran out of coffee. Had to take a bio break. No big deal. All good. Returning, I'll switch to standing mode. Let me raise my desk a bit. Maybe a bit more. That's too much. Okay, how are we looking? Looking good. Whoa. Of course, my mouse batteries are also going to die. Because, you know, all the things. I need to take a look at the do list. So I showed off the architecture. That's done. We are working. Okay, we're doing the database initialization and loading and syncing. I've done none of those things. I've just done the finding. Or not. I'm going to move this done one to the bottom so you can see the top one. Looks like you might have been able to see it anyway. Whatever. Great. And yeah, I've got a Trello embedded on my live stream, so you can see this list as part of the stream. I think it's pretty cool. So we've done the finding, and now it's either initialize if it's not there or loaded if it is. And I've got initialization first, and I think I'm going to stick with that. Sorry if that crinkly sound is annoying. Toaster tart, baby. Gotta have a toaster tart. Thanks, Aldi. First, I should probably make sure all this works. I would not be surprised if I have broken stuff. Well, it builds. It builds. Is it going to totally freak at the end? I'm just going to put a console message here to see if we got to the end. I found a DB. Didn't found a DB. Refresh. Sign out and sign back in. Didn't found a DB. Yay. That's the correct response. Oh, wait. No, that's not the correct response. I do has a DB. I'm going to look in my... Yeah, buddy, there it is. Let me refresh my drive. Am I the right person? Lauren Norman, yep, that's who I'm using. What's this? I do not even know what Google Drive is trying to do, or Google Plus is trying to do these days. Yeah, so I do have a file that I did expect it to find. It's been finding it, and now it's not. So something I just changed. Something I did just change the fact that it could find the file before. And again, I'm not using tests. That would make this all much nicer if I were. Maybe. If I were using tests well, it would make this nicer. Using them well is not guaranteed. Yeah. We'll find this pretty fast, I feel. I'm just going to throw some console logs in and figure it out. Log the folder IDs I find. Found file ID. Log the file IDs I find. I bet this return doesn't actually do it. It doesn't actually do what I thought it did. We're going to log that as well. Okay. Okay. Sign in as this dude who has a database in there. Whoa, nothing printed. What happened? Nothing printed. What happened? Oh, you know what? You gotta return that thing, dude. Gotta return that thing, and inside of it, I gotta return this thing. That's how you weld promises together. So this returns a promise. So I got to return that to the caller. Or it's not going to wait. Actually, nothing happened that time. Need a console log here. Drive.database lookup. Called. Let's see if I'm even getting into these things. And this is janky, just throwing console logs in. Yeah, I did get called. But the answer is going to be quick and simple, so I'm not going full tilt on good practices at the moment, which is fine. Okay, so that does get called. That means this is getting called. Let's jump into it and see what we got here. I'm probably, again, not returning something. Well... How strange. Console.log123. Seriously reminds me of my college days. 1 and 2 got called, but 3 did not. Why would that be? Oh, get client didn't work the way I thought it would. Get client didn't work. Get client didn't work? That surprises me, but this whole GAPI thing. GAPIs are global. It's loaded by JavaScript in the base HTML also. No, more console logs. GC1, GC2. That's not happening at all. So this function isn't getting called because it would do this immediately. Get client. It's coming from auth. I swear it's this export default thing. If I say export API, no, it doesn't work. What is happening? And drive. So Sheets, maybe Sheets isn't working anymore either. Because Sheets is doing get client. Refresh it. Yep, it's breaking. Auth.getClient is not a function. Except it totally is. And it gets yielded. Import auth from auth. Const get client equals auth.default.get client. Is that right? Is that? Do not know. Console.log. What is it? Get client. It's right there. It's right there. And it's a function. It's right there and it's a function. And if I do this, you fail. Undefined. So wait, that works. No. It does work. So an object literal under the export statement works, but a stored object doesn't. This API is just an object. What if it's a const? That doesn't. That can't. Okay, I'm going to make a note for myself because I obviously need to learn that. You know, Webpack was really awesome. I've built so many asset pipelines with JavaScript manually, and then Webpack came along and everything just worked. It was kind of a sigh of relief, so I didn't really learn how it worked. It's been great. But now, obviously, and you know, every now and then you hit something that you don't quite understand. I don't know if that's common JS or something Webpack's doing specifically or what, but I've done this before. I've looked this up before a few times. I always have a hard time finding exactly what the export syntax is. So anyway, I'm trying to structure my code better and break things in modules, and it's biting me because I don't quite understand. But I will be a better coder at the end of this. Okay. So this idea of the API is probably not the best. Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to drop it. Let these become functions. I'm actually going to toss these lets as well. Because they're const in reality. Okay, and then wait, what? Oh. No export default. Then we got get client. I don't even think I need get auth to. Sign in, sign out. Who calls get auth to? Sign in and sign out, do? No one else. Why am I returning it in one, not the other? Feels like an oversight. I'm going to add the return. Ugh. What is this thing complaining about? Oh, yeah, of course. All right, so get client, sign in, sign out. That's off. Now get client should work here in my drive. Let's go back to it. Okay, we're not crashing, we're compiling. All right, cannot get property sign out of undefined. Google. And you're calling auth.signout. Auth is undefined. Totally gonna lose batteries in my mouse before the stream is over. That's where the default. That's right. So if you include, so if you export default. Ugh. Const API equals okay, we got stuff. Okay. 1, 2, 3, found folder IDs. Okay, I did find one folder named the correct thing. Great. Then we got this promise was not returned. That's fantastic because I see that I got a null back and it didn't found a DB. But then a moment later, a promise resolved with the file ID. So yeah, so this warning is actually exactly the thing that's happening. Promise is returning too soon. It's inside search folder for database. And then it's inside a new promise. And then promise.each. Promise was created in a promise.each handler, but was not returned from it. Oh yeah, that's true. I think that's true. Get these console logs out of here. So the folder thing worked. Get client isn't a promise, right? I don't think so. It's inside the each. Here's the each. Right. This search folder for database. Right. That needs to be returned. Because promise.each is expecting each of its bodies to return. Well, to return at all. It wasn't returning at all. To either return a value or a promise. And if it returns a promise, then it will await that promise, which was the problem. It wasn't awaiting the internal promises, so that warning totally caught me. It said, hey, you made a promise inside of a promise.each, but you didn't do anything with it. Like, it was lost. It went off into the ether, and nothing was tracking it, and that was exactly it, because promise.each should have been tracking it. I would expect that that was the problem, and will make the problem go away. Awesome. Much better this time. Found folder IDs. There's a collection of folder IDs. Found a file ID. There's the one file ID. Printed it twice because I just spammed all those console logs in there. And, oh, you know what? I'm sorry, folks. I wasn't thinking about whether or not you could read the console, but I can totally blow the console up. Should have done that a while ago. I'll try to remember to do that when I stream from now on. Okay. Yeah, everything worked except that I called an action that doesn't exist, but great. Let's go see. All right, database lookup, and then here back in user reset state. I think it's actually a mutation, which is fine. Okay, you're right. So I found it and tried to use it, and I'm not doing that yet. Let's commit up here. Whoa! My mouse is going crazy. Yeah, I've got commit. Right. So this is what I will do, but for the moment, we're going to throw an error. Not implemented. Load database. And let's face it, there's nothing in that file to actually load. So, okay, I love it. All right, we've done a lot today. A lot. I mean, not a lot, but enough to check stuff in. So let's do some quick version control hygiene. All right, I'm going to undo everything and make a few granular commits. So I moved auth and Google Sheets files into this services Google thing. So I'm just going to commit all that. Refactor Google API usage into a service. Boom. I renamed Google Login from Google Login Flow. Yeah, I renamed a few things. Okay, my mouse is dying too often. I'm going to grab some batteries. One moment. One moment, folks. This is it, ladies and gentlemen. This is how the sausage is made. Replacing mouse batteries. Reminds me of a job I used to have. And we are back. 100% battery. That deserves the last piece of toaster tart. Okay. Oh, much better mouse. It's an old thing I renamed. Login spec to user spec. To match modules. Oh, same change. Undo, redo. Great. Google spec is nothing. Okay, user sources got a rename thing. Profile. Oh, this is a bug. I had a I used template interpolation instead of template string interpolation. Fix wrong interpolation syntax. That was something unrelated. That's a rename. That's a rename. Okay, let's rename these two. Rename actions. Great. And then that leaves us with kind of a big deal. An empty spec is not a big deal, but I'll put something in it soon. We'll leave it alone. Right. So respect Google service and get API junk out of Vuex Actions. Yay, okay, I feel great. Let's go ahead and push that. And if you're watching near the time I made this, the code is still not open source, but it will be. Because Paperize is a free, as in free, piece of software. It's a piece of public utility software. Trying to invent that idea. It's software that runs so cheaply as to be possible for it to be free or donation supported without an issue. It runs so scalably and efficiently as to not need to hire a team or own servers or secure things. Anyone can use it as much as they want, and that shouldn't be a problem for anyone, anywhere. It's free as in beer, which means you don't have to pay money to use it. It's free as in speech, which means the code is open and doesn't do anything tricky or malicious. It's free as in other things, free from surveillance. So it doesn't track you when you use it, unlike most websites, most web anything. And it's free as in data. It doesn't want your data. That's the whole point of this exercise today, is using Google Drive for your data. You keep your data. I don't need to keep your data. I don't want it. I don't want your data. I don't want to see your data. I don't want the liability of your data. I want you to be working on your next masterpiece that no one can know about, and I want you to be able to use Paperize with full knowledge that you're not exposing yourself to be hacked, to be scooped, to be anything. The software is yours. You own it. Because we all own it. There you go. There's my spiel. I'm working on that spiel. Need to get better at it. Need to reduce it to a pitch, but whenever I touch on it, I like to go ahead and just do that. So there it was. Okay. We're all checked in, and we can... I'm going to get back to my to-do list real quick. Initialize. Let's initialize. So... let me delete this file. Pretty sure it's just empty. Can I read it? I can read it. Ooh, oh yeah, it's my package.json. It's not empty, but it's fine. I'll rename it. I'll rename it to package.json because that's what it is. So now Paperize won't find it when I log in, and let's just go test that. I didn't refresh this browser, so I didn't get any new code. It's the same code that found it a moment ago. It's running again, and not finding it now. Didn't found a DB. I like the way that I wrote that. Oh, hey, I just committed a bunch of console logs. In reality, I should probably be using a post-commit hook, or a pre-commit hook to find those. And at least warn myself. But it's fine. I feel like I need them at the moment. Just because I'm naked, I have no tests. But in the fullness of time, there will be tests here that kind of keep all this stuff copacetic. And I won't feel so needy. Yeah, there you go. Did I do it here too? Nope. I'm getting some weird lag. I thought it was my mouse batteries. Don't know what it is. Don't know what it is, but I'm going to remove the console logs. Yep. One sec while I pull up Activity Monitor and see what's going on. This computer's never really had a problem. Definitely seems to be having one now, though. It's just the mouse, I guess. So I'm going to assume the mouse is being interfered with from some other Bluetooth or something. Whatever. Yeah, so as I just proved, it's not finding the database after I renamed it, which is great. So the trick now is to initialize it. Pardon me. User is, if it doesn't find a database, it dispatches initialize database. And what initialize database does, I've got some comments here already, is get current view Vuex state, cull it down to the relevant bits, which, yeah, and then upload it to the drive. Which will be a special thing too. Do that whole folder finding thing again. Okay, so getting the current view state is Vuex state is pretty straightforward. I've got that code somewhere already. I'll go find it. Calling it to the relevant bits. So I already do something like this where I'm storing the database in pouch in local store, and it's really the same thing. I basically make a judgment call as to the difference in persistent data and transient data. So the persistent data is the obvious stuff that you come here for. Your games, your components, templates, sources, images. I take back sources and images. Those are complicated assets. They're not wrong, but they have special handling. But yeah, so. But then there's things you don't care about. Obviously, you care about those, the games and components and things. You want those to be saved for when you turn your computer off, etc. The ones you don't care about are user interface things, like what game is currently selected, whether the Google wait for this spinner is spinning. Things like that you don't care about, and so we don't want to store them. So, and then a little more complicated is the user. So you don't want the user information to be in the database. Like it's in Vuex, who you are, who you're logged in as, etc. But when you save your database, you don't need to actually encode that stuff into that database, because that database, it shouldn't basically load out and then like overwrite which user you are. That's not sensical. Yeah. All right. Well, let's see what we've got here. So, I first want to get the Vuex state, and I want to print it. This is getting called, yes. And I could probably also. No, we're good. But yeah, this is getting called, I believe. Yep. Yar. Okay, so we're in the zone, and we're ready. Okay, let's get the current Vuex state. I've got a database controller. What is this? Here it is. Get JSON. Store.state. It's that simple, folks. It's not. It's not that simple. It's not that simple. But it kind of is. And you can see I'm doing the user thing here too. I've got a way to clear the store. If you clear the store, it needs to clear everything but store.state.user, right? Because because it'll log you out if you did that. So usually when you clear in store, you want to clear all the everything else, but not yourself. So anyway, suffice to say, the user bit is how you deal with who's logged in, who's using the thing right now, and that requires special handling. Okay, so we could do this, but I think it's going to be weird if Google, if a module that's until now dumb about the store suddenly requires the store itself and starts doing stuff to it. But we'll see how that plays out. Let me go look at the persistence thing that I mentioned, how I'm already doing persistence. So I've got this, let's see, local store persistence. Yeah, is this it? Get local DB, set local DB. So this is a really tight, oh, here we go. Yeah, this is it. So when you call save state, I actually don't know if you ever call save state because I never see that console log, which shouldn't be there. Yeah, neither of those happened. I think this is maybe old. Does this ever get included? It doesn't ever get included, so that is an old file. Pouch persistence. Okay, right, so local store persistence was using something I did for the local store before I was actually like using pouch correctly. Pouch is couch in JavaScript. So CouchDB is this cool web first database. And Pouch lets you do couch stuff in the browser. In JavaScript, but in the browser. Which is cool. It means you can sync with other couch databases right out of your out of your browser, which is a possibility. It's kind of like the Firebase use case. But Firebase is like more Google insanity. Whereas I think people can pretty quickly run their own couch databases one day, perhaps. I don't know. It's just an idea. That's not really on my roadmap for the moment. Okay, right. So this gets called. So this thing subscribes. Subscribes to the store and gets called. Yeah. So the first thing that happens is is initialize and watch store, and you hand it the store. And it basically subscribes to the store and calls its own little on method for get to the store, the type of mutation that just happened, and the total state. So on is a common word. On. All right. So and the first thing it does is see, hey, is the mutation we're having right now one that I usually ignore? If it ignores, then you just resolve right now and move on. Then it checks to see if it's certain special cases. Those special cases are become and logout. Become is important because, again, that's a user thing. So if you're logging in, we're currently becoming a user, which means you need to wipe whatever's in there and load some. What am I doing? This is not what I'm supposed to be doing right now. Save state, loaded state, loaded state. Load state and save state. So I think, yeah, so this state came in from Boy, this code is confusing me. It's code that I wrote a while ago. You ever notice how yourself in the far future or the far past, or even the not so far, is a different programmer? Why did this person write this code? This person is me. Okay, here's the save state. This is this gets called with the entire state object. And what does it do? It makes sure that there's a user and that the user has an ID token, because that's the key that it uses to save the state into. I probably won't be doing that. It makes sure the last save is done before starting its own promise of saving, which it overwrites the last save promise, which you can see it begins as a just resolve. Record this.db.put. So that is pouch. And it's saving the whole state object. And that's all there is to it. It just tags on some stuff. This is pouch stuff to make sure that it's stored in a unique ID location and that it has a revision. I'm kind of surprised that I'm not culling out stuff. So that's fine. That's fine. Things aren't like I thought they were. Once again, the one thing about requirements is that they always change. So I may need to do a little bit of research on this for myself. Yeah. Because the loaded state just gets set. Yep, so I'm not actually doing anything. Like I thought I was. And this is the entire state because it's just subscribed. Got the... Yep. So we'll do something similar. You know, we don't want to call Google too much. I don't know if we want to continue storing state locally or not. This pouch persistence could go away entirely and become Google persistence. I mean, I have local store persistence, pouch persistence, which is just persistence. Yeah. This is me trying to only include pouch persistence when it's appropriate, and of course I am making Webpack very unhappy. Okay. Sorry folks, I'm just like not prepared as I thought I was for this little job. So I'm going to need another, so if I do have that Google persistence thing, it's going to be similar. It's going to need to subscribe. It's going to need to subscribe to the store. Something like this. And it's going to need to ignore certain mutations, and it's going to need to do special things on certain mutations, log in, log out, and it's going to need to not just save the entire state, but cull the state down to just the things we care about storing. And that watcher process is going to be a separate process from this thing, which is just an action that says, hey, initialize the database. Initializing the database is something that has to happen before that watcher can run. So that watcher is something that's going to know where the database is and how, and it's going to watch the state. It's going to watch Vuex state change here locally, and as it changes, it's going to serialize it up to drive into a file that should already be there. So this initialize is going to put the file there, while load would, both of them, initialize and load will both yield the ID of a file in drive that the watcher process writes to. Which is to say that at the end of this, where we find or initialize the database, we need to have the ID of the found or initialized database. Don't actually care which, and send it to that other process. This is login, yeah. Yeah, so once you get logged in, you should have a active serialization, synchronization path to drive. Yeah, at the end of login, that should just be active. Which we'll do. So this promise, this dot then, will either return the found database from here, or it will yield the new database ID from here, which allows me to dot then database file ID. Set up the watcher with this file. And I don't know, that probably doesn't belong in user. Probably doesn't belong in user. That's probably another thing I'll dispatch into Google. Google Database Watcher. Google Start Database Watcher. I guess that database file ID. That's that. So, as usual, I'm coming to the end of my stream, and I didn't get virtually any of the to-do items I laid out done. Frankly, that's a lot like normal web development. I definitely go a little slower streaming. I'm talking and trying to be explanatory, but I also kind of focus more because I don't want to have dead air, so I'm not sure if I'm working faster or slower on stream. Something I'm sure I could track and learn about for great justice. I like the texture of this though. Promises have a way of breaking your code into its logical chunks, but it's like asynchronous chunks, obviously. You know, one action can take a while. You're trying to log in. Well, hey, got to go through the Google login flow. I've got to store who you are when you get back from that. I've got to go see if you've actually got a database. I've got to load it if you do. I've got to initialize it if you don't, and then I've got to track against it either way. And I got to watch that whole thing for errors that I can parse. And you know, each one of those steps takes a minute. It has to make a call and come back. So anyway, I kind of got right up to the point where I could do the work, and now the stream's over. So that's just how it goes sometimes, folks. If you like this stream and you want to see more like it, please check out my Patreon, patreon.com/Paperize. We're making Paperize, the tabletop game design and prototyping application for kids, teachers, professional game designers, professional facilitators, etc. I've already gone into how it's free, as in free. If you want to see more streams like this, if you are an excited game designer, if you just believe that more software should be free and less hegemonic, please feel free to donate to the project. Again, patreon.com/Paperize. And soon, hopefully this month, we'll actually have a public beta that's quite usable and exciting for everyone. So watch the rest of this week. We'll be doing more Google Drive stuff. This login and persistence stuff is one part of it, but we also want you to be able to store images in Google Drive. I'll be doing some image stuff later this week. Once all that's done, we're going to push a beta. We're going to push beta 5, and it's the biggest beta we've ever pushed. Getting somewhere now, folks. All right, thank you very much, and I'll see you soon.